This week on the Baseline Podcast, we talk about a huge week of college football. Everything from last week to this week's big-time showdowns, from Tennessee versus Alabama to Penn State versus Michigan, and to so much more. We also discuss a new segment called Buy or Sell, where we talk about the big teams in college football right now. Do we buy them or do we sell stock? It's going to be a huge week of college football, and we're here to cover it all. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben. That's Josh. And we're 60 episodes in. It's crazy. Well, it's like more like 50 with you, or like 47. I don't even know what it is anymore. But anyways, it is fun to be back. We had a crazy week of college sports and of the MLB and the NFL. The Browns still suck for some reason. We'll get to that in a second. But also, it's just been a great fall week. It feels like it's the time for sports. I'm excited. Josh, how was your weekend? How did you enjoy these sports and all this craziness going on in the sports world?
It's been a heck of a weekend. Like you said, Ben, we got the Cleveland Indians moving on to the AL Division Series. So all those matchups are set. We'll be talking about those later. We also had a pretty solid week of college football games, I thought, and even more exciting slate this week. And we're going to preview some of those big games. NHL started last night. I actually stayed up to watch a little bit of my LA Kings take on the Vegas Golden Knights. They ended up losing 4-3. I found out when I woke up. Yeah, it was it's the official regular season, and then the NBA regular season we starting up soon, and all the major sports will be in full swing. So we are, like we said last week, it is a good time to be a sports fan in October, as always.
And so we're going to have a lot to talk about over the next few weeks, but I think this week we're going to focus on some NFL. Just briefly, we'll talk about the NFL, specifically the Browns and how they're struggling. Then, like you said, we'll talk about some college football. You know, we don't have to talk about Ohio State this week because they're on a bye, but I'll tell you, CJ Stroud, I said, Josh, if CJ Stroud had a bad game, I would drop him out, or at least down my Heisman list, but he did not. So that's all I got to say, is that he'll still be there when we go over our list. Just saying.
Oh, man, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. I know. Sorry.
CJ Stroud's number one.
Shocker. Anyways, Josh, as a Browns fan, and as I'm a Browns fan, what's happened? I am so speechless with this team. Like, this defense is so bad. Everyone wants to blame Cade York, which there is a part of that you can blame, but also it's just, Josh, take it away.
I mean, we both were in agreement that the Chargers were going to win this game. I don't think we thought it'd be quite in this fashion, but I mean, I even bet my younger brother $50 that the Chargers would win because he was so confident the Browns were going to win. And he ended up flipping around. He's like, no, how about if the Browns win, you can't go to the gym for a month. And if the Chargers win, I can't. And I was like, I just want your money, not your gains. And he ended up doing the bet. So Chargers W, as we both expected. But I don't think – I mean, we know how good the Chargers offense is. Justin Herbert being
rushing
leader.
team was not that good, though. The rushing yards were –
the rushing offense is not good over there in L.A., but the Charger pass game, obviously with Herbert, and that was going to be an issue, I thought, with our secondary going up against that guy. But we also had a terrible day in the run defense as well.
So bad. We
had a chance right there too, dude. Like, being down 2, I think we were one of the higher scoring offenses for the whole week. And then it's just the defense a letdown once again.
What did I say last week? Joe Woods needs to go. And I know that seems like just such a Browns fandom answer.
Such a cop-out, lame.
But it's like, but Josh, this hasn't been the first year this has happened. Like, this is a pattern with Joe Woods defenses. Like, it's just kind of like everything that happens. And Josh, this Chargers team, through the first 4 games, had like 200 and some, it was ridiculous. It was like 200 and some yards rushing. And they ran for more yards this week than they had those previous 4 weeks. Like, Josh, I don't care who you are. Like, all you got to do, just stop the run. Like, just you stop the run. Like, yeah, you can afford to maybe have a few big plays that go against you, whatever. But when a team that is not good rushing the ball now has a balanced attack and can beat you from both sides, it's frustrating, it's aggravating, and I you want to blame Cade York for missing those 2 fields, which he shouldn't have missed the first one for sure. The second one, I mean, it was like, okay, put it on the line. It's what's going to happen. But also, Jacoby Brissett played great again until the last couple drives, which seems to be a pattern with Jacoby Brissett, is like he gets great through the whole game and then throws a bad pick. So I don't know. There's a lot that could have went differently. I mean, they got really blessed with the fact that Chargers went for it on fourth down, didn't have it. I mean, I thought, oh, that's game. We're going to win this game. And yet I'm still, what am I now? 4-1 predicting the Browns games, and you're 2-3, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, this is the second one that I've gotten right.
Yeah. So you're 2-3, I'm right? 4-1, but yeah. You're 2-3 because I'm 2 games ahead of you. That's how I remember. So I'm 4-1.
I'm trying to remember.
Because we went opposite last week.
I didn't get the Panthers right. I didn't get the Jets right. Didn't get who was week 3? Steelers. Didn't get that right. I don't think I got the Falcons right. Dude, this is actually my first correct.
Oh yeah. So maybe no. You're 1-4 because there's been 5 games.
1-4.
So I'm 3-2, I believe. So I think I was 2-2.
Yeah, because you're 2 ahead of me.
I'm 2 ahead.
We were both in agreement on the last 2 games on the result, but we were wrong once and right on the other.
True. So yeah,
one other thing too, man. Crazy that we only allowed Herbert 228 yards, a touchdown, no picks. Thought that was interesting, but again, like you said, with the run game, that was kind of a.
And where was Garrett? No pressure from him. 0. He had 0 pressure on the quarterback.
Dude, I also got to give a little bit of props to our defense for holding the Chargers to 2. Or they had 5 red zone trips and only converted on 2 of those. So that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
We did have 48 more penalty yards than them. We also committed 1 turnover. They did not. I guess those are a couple things that might have played in. But when you look at it, dude, like first downs, we had 1 more. Total yards, they had 22 more. I mean, that's pretty much even on all those kind of categories. But then when you get down to like the important stuff, like the turnovers, the penalties and stuff like that, we are coming up on the short end of those once again. That's starting to seem to be a trend.
It's my question to you, Josh, is this. You've watched enough of these games, right? They have a pretty big game coming up against Patriots, which is maybe not as good as the Patriots team as we are used to. But Josh, is this a must-win game for the Browns? Like, is this a must-win? Like, they have to go out and they have to win this game, go 3-3, and at least you're back to 500?
I mean, I've been saying that those first 4 were all must-win, and now the fact that Mac Jones probably isn't playing in this game, it's like you better go and win it, right?
Yeah, it's at home too.
The Patriots was a game last year I thought was a must-win too. That was one that Mac Jones kind of lit up. I think lit up our defense, and it ended up being just an embarrassing blowout. And it was just like, wow, that should have never happened. So Patriots, I don't know if they'll be able to pull off a sneaky blowout win like that again this year, but it is going to help if Mac Jones isn't playing and it's just Bailey Zappi. But yeah, I'm with you, Ben. We got a grind coming in the middle of the season, like we've been saying. It starts, I guess, after this game with Ravens and Bengals, which are looking like more winnable games now. But
AFC North is so bad right now.
Yeah, it's not as strong of a division as we anticipated, is it?
No,
but those games are still going to be tougher than, I guess, these other ones that we've been struggling to win.
Okay, so now that we're a little bit into the season, Josh, I want to ask you, leading up to, I believe it's week 11? Week 11 he comes back? Watson,
week 11, Deshaun comes back.
So week 11. So we will have 10 games by then. Josh, I want to hear from you. Do you think what is the win total they'll have now that you've seen this team play? What is the win total they'll have going into that week?
Shoot, dude, I'm gonna check all the opponents right now as we speak here, but I'll tell you what I think. All right, right now I'm gonna go ahead and say that the Ravens and Bengals are both losses. Okay. Dolphins, it totally depends on if Tua's playing that game or not. But out of those 3, I think they steal 1. So I'll say they're 1-2 so far. The Bills is a loss, 1-3. Buccaneers, a loss, 1-4. So what would that be? 1-4 with 2 and 3 would be 3-7.
But plus the Patriots game. What do you got for the Patriots game?
I'm going to go ahead and say they beat New England.
So
I'm going to say they beat New England.
So then they'd be 4-7 going in that game.
4-7 when Deshaun comes back, coming against the Texans, and they should beat the Texans. So in my book, I think they'd be 5-7 after that first game with Deshaun back.
which is a scary thing to think about it. But again, we're trying to be positive because we're Browns fans, but we also
that's why I'm saying that they steal one of those, because it's like, I don't think
but also
in the NFL you lose that many games in a row, but they got to get one of those.
No, I agree. So before we move on from the Browns, we don't want to spend too much time on the Browns because I know people say, oh, it's the Cleveland Browns. Okay. I don't know why they talk like that, but that's just what we're going to go with. No, so we're going to give our prediction for this week. So right now, like I said, I am 3-2 picking the Browns games. Josh is 1-4. He finally got his first victory. I don't know if it's like a bad thing. I think they lost. He got his first victory, but so 1-4. He's got to pick up a game here if he's got to stick with me here. But so Josh, you say Browns victory. What is your score prediction for this week?
If Zappy's playing, it's going to be a low-scoring one for sure. I'm going to go with something along the lines of Cleveland 21, New England 17.
Ooh, go a little low. I am actually going to also go with the Cleveland win. The reason I say this is because I think that this is where Stefanski this week has to go into the defensive side of the room and just say, like, look, Joe Woods, you got to get your act together. Like, this defense, you got to get your act together. Because now they traded for Deion Jones. We don't know when he's going to be ready, but that's
I like that move though. I hated our linebacker group for a while, dude.
But you know what I also hate is our defensive tackles. I love Tommy Togiai, but he's not ready yet. And I think they need some help in the defense.
If we're getting crushed in the run game, I mean, that's what you got to look at is how the linebackers are playing, how the defensive tackles are playing.
Exactly.
They're not clogging the holes.
Exactly. So so I'm actually going to go victory. I think it's going to be a little high scoring. I think Chubb runs again for 100 yards. I mean, it seems like every week Chubb runs for 100 yards.
He's first in like all the major categories, dude.
He is amazing.
I don't have any complaints about his usage this year so far.
See, Josh, they listen to us. Stefanski listens to this podcast. I doubt it. But so I'm going to go with Browns 28, Patriots 10.
28-10, you think that high? Okay.
This is the thing. I've watched is it Zappy? Zap? What is
Bailey
it? Zappy?
Zap.
I don't know. Whatever it is.
I've heard Zappy more.
I've watched him, and I don't know. This is part of me because one of my coworkers is a Patriots fan, but I've watched him, and I asked my friend this too at work. He said he also just feels like it's just not the same offense. It's a very skeletal type of offense compared with what Mac Jones is. So yeah, I'm gonna go. Actually, I'm gonna go 28-13. I'll bump it up 3. So 28-13. Okay. I do
think New England does run the ball pretty good though.
They do, yes. And we saw last week that obviously we can't. Actually, last 2 weeks. So that is the Browns prediction. Josh can't make up a game or anything this week, but he is
not going to fall behind.
Exactly. So that is the NFL talk. Josh, let's move into some college football.
Oh man,
it's so good, man. I love college football.
Yeah, I think everything about last week's games at this point, I think this is coming out Thursday or Friday, has already been said. But did you get to catch any of that Texas A&M Alabama game?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. I watched mostly just the fourth quarter because I wanted to watch some of the other teams I hadn't seen up to that point. Like I was watching a little bit of Illinois and Iowa. What a boring game that was.
Dude, Illinois, man.
I was watching Notre Dame and BYU.
That was a good game.
Yeah, it turned out pretty good.
Hey, they're making making me a Ohio State fan happy because Notre Dame keeps winning. So
yeah, it had another win to make that win look a little bit better. Notre Dame had it. Like a lot of opportunities to blow that game open. It seemed like and just didn't take it every time. But that Alabama Texas A&M game, dude, we were all watching that one, rooting for Texas A&M, dude. As everybody knows, no Bryce Young.
Yeah,
I think that Bama also committed 2 penalties on that final drive to help Texas A&M go on. And they get to that 4th and 2, dude, and that's the play call. I mean, Johnny Manziel was all up in arms on Twitter about it. What a terrible play call, and everybody's has basically been in unison. Like, what kind of a call was that to win the game?
Jimbo Fisher, classic. Josh, I'll say this. I'll be honest. If Alabama doesn't have Bryce Young for a longer period of time, they could easily have 2 losses by the end of the year. Like, this is not a great offensive team without Bryce Young. And it's very obvious. And for me, as like just a fan of college football, it's like, this happens to Alabama every year. They just like Texas game. Now this game where they just squeak away with these wins. But if you look at the most dominant team in football right now, I don't think it's Alabama after last week. And I don't think it's Georgia. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Ohio State fan. I know all the people out there are going to be like, well, you're a Ohio State fan. I'm like, no, Alabama looked really suspect a lot in a few games this year. And the same with Georgia against Missouri and Kent State, right? Like, so, but I will say about that game is Jimbo, like, dude, what are you thinking? Like, you have the chance to pull out a huge win for your program, a huge win. You spent millions of dollars on these recruits, and yet you can't pull out the big one against a backup quarterback.
Yeah, that too, right? I mean, they had their backup quarterback, Haynes King, technically, even though he was the week 1 starter. Max Johnson's hurt now, so they're throwing King out there again. And
this offense,
yeah, I don't know,
bad,
dude. The
man.
receiver didn't even run a deep enough route. Like,
no, he
that is
didn't.
completed. He's not in the end zone. So I can't remember which show I watched, dude. It might have been the Cranes, but they were describing Texas A&M's almost win as like a situation where you're finally working up the courage to ask that girl out at school. You put on like your good shoes and you dress up a little bit more than usual. You spend some extra time on your hair. She's at her locker walking away as you go to yours. So you're about to cross paths and you're about to get your chance, like finally ask her out. And you just say, "What's up?" And that's the end. Blew your opportunity. You just were content with it almost happening, with getting that close. And then you didn't muster up the courage to pull the trigger and actually make it happen. So I don't know. I thought that was a funny, I guess, way to put it. But it did kind of seem that way, didn't it? They fought all game, all 3 quarters. One other thing too, Jahmyr Gibbs has been getting a lot more touches without Bryce Young, and he's been taking so advantage of it, dude. He's got 29 carries these last 2 games against Arkansas and A&M. 360 yards, 2 touchdowns. And I mean, that's one of the biggest gets of the transfer portal. And they've not really used him to maybe the capacity that everybody would have expected. Alabama, I mean, historically is always running the ball really well, putting together really good NFL products at the running back position. They've been reluctant to use Gibbs, it seems like. But in these last 2 games in Bryce's absence, they've been relying on him a lot more. And he's been taking full advantage, man. Like, I don't know if it's too late for him to be able to put his name in the Heisman race since he didn't have that many great games early on. But, I mean, he's exploding in these big games for them.
Yeah, I like Jahmyr Gibbs as a player, but if you don't start off the year with, like, getting a lot of touches, especially if you're not a quarterback, that is really hard to get yourself in the Heisman voting because you have to go out and have, like the guy from Pittsburgh and have, like, 4 games of that, right? Like, it's just, to me, I think I'm interested to see what they do when Bryce is back. Do they still go to Gibbs? And that's the question. Will they still use him, or will it be kind of like that where it's like, oh, we have Bryce Young back, let's rely on him? Because I'll be honest, we don't know how healthy Bryce Young will be the rest of the year whenever he comes back. We don't know how healthy he'll be. I do believe now Bryce is kind of going to have to fight his way back in the Heisman picture. I think it's going to be
if he does miss 2.5 games, it's going to be tough for even him. That's why I bring up Gibbs, because it's like, if you're going to pick a candidate from Alabama, shouldn't be the guy that's been playing all season, but he also hasn't been getting consistent touches. So it's kind of interesting. But while we're on the topic of Bama, why don't we move over to the big game that they got this week?
Yeah,
with Tennessee, on the road at Tennessee too.
Oh, I can't wait for the game. Oh, I can't wait.
It's going to be, dare I say, the game of the week. I know there's a lot of games between undefeated teams. I'll have top 25 matchups, but this might be the one, because I'm sure it's going to impact all of our power rankings.
Yeah.
It's going to impact the AP poll. It's going to impact those SEC standings, dude. I guess where do we start here? What do you like about what do you like in this matchup, Ben? Is there any glaring weakness or strength that either one might be able to take advantage of, you think?
I think I'm really interested to see. We don't know if Bryce is playing yet, do we? Is that still?
We do not.
Yeah.
He's trending, I think, to be available, but it's no sure thing yet. We have no idea.
This is my say. If Bryce plays, I'm interested to see how the Tennessee defense plays against Bryce Young. Like, Tennessee is like, they've had, a good run so far. Like, I think Tennessee is.
They've got some respectable wins over programs like Pittsburgh, Florida, LSU this last week.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, they, like you said, they beat Pittsburgh, which was a close game.
That was a close game. The Florida game was also close.
Yep. They beat. They beat Akron by 60, but that's just because.
Yeah.
just Akron.
Yeah,
But
they handled LSU pretty good, but
I'm
it
interested
seems
to
like
see,
anytime they go up against like a capable offense, that defense has a tough time.
yeah, and I guess my thing would be is Hendon Hooker, this is his game to put himself on the mark. And I say right now, I think after this past performance by CJ Stroud, he has brought the gap a little farther. I think there's a bigger gap now between 1 and 2. I think with that performance that he had against Michigan State, I think Hendon Hooker's right there. I think if Hendon Hooker has an amazing game this week, let's say he throws for 250, runs for 100, guides them to a win, you got to put Hendon Hooker up there with CJ Stroud and being like, this guy's making a big impact. But the biggest thing, like you asked me, the biggest thing I'm interested to see is how is the Alabama offense going to run if Bryce Young is there, or if Bryce Young is not there? Will they have a balanced offense? Will they be only running the ball? Will they be passing the ball? We don't really know because we haven't seen, like, with him not there, we don't see them throwing the ball a lot, but with him there, we see them throwing the ball more. And it's like, you're going to have a balance, because I think Tennessee's going to lock in to either one if you're doing one or the other. So I'm interested to see how that is. And then I'm also interested to see, how does the Tennessee offense compete against a very good defense? That's the other thing I want to see. So it's almost the offenses versus the defenses on both sides is what I'm really interested to see. And it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. It's going to surprise people. I think it's going to be a very high scoring game.
Yeah, it is that strength on strength, man. The Alabama defense, which is 5th in scoring defense, 5th in total defense, also 5th in yards per pass attempt allowed, 3rd in yards per carry allowed. So obviously the biggest test that Tennessee's offense is going to face in, like I said, strength on strength. So Tennessee, 2nd in scoring this year, 1st in total yards. They move the ball really quick, right? It's one of those fast-paced offenses, and they're only turning the ball over 1 time per game. So that ranks 26. So as fast as they're moving, they're not really making many mistakes. Hendon Hooker still hasn't thrown a pick this year so far. And they got a running game that they can balance out too. 21st in rushing yards per game, 37th in yards per carry. And then, like I said, Hendon Hooker, dude, I mean, he's been operating pretty good. 1,432 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, no picks. The 90.4 QBR, which is 3rd in the country. You love to see. Another 230 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns. So the numbers they're nothing that's like mind blowing, right? We kind of both have him in the Heisman because of how he has, I guess, championed this Tennessee team to where it's at right now. And as quickly as I guess he's done it too, being a transfer in last year, not starting the season, being the backup, and then coming in and playing as great as he did. And this year he just looks even more clean, a little bit more comfortable too. So I don't think he's going to win the Heisman based on his numbers. He's going to have to do it by just tearing up the SEC, dude. Like you gotta beat those teams like LSU and Florida, but you also they play Alabama and Georgia. They got to win one of those two.
At least one. Yeah.
They got to win one of those two. So it all starts especially if Bryce Young isn't playing, you got to go and get this one.
Yeah.
This is like that game that's must win.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's going to be a great game. I'm excited. Man, I'm so glad Ohio State doesn't play this week, just to the fact that I get to watch some of these games, because
so you can watch all these other ones.
Yeah, because like when Ohio State's on, I don't turn it off. Like, you ask my wife, like, I'll keep track of scores on my phone, but I never like turn it off. Like, I'm like, it's so for me to be able to like sit down and be able to watch Alabama fully in Tennessee and be able to watch Michigan and Penn State and seeing these, it's just going to be a great matchup. Now, are we going to predict now, or are we doing a fast roll through later?
I think we go ahead and predict now.
Let's do it. All right, Josh. Alabama, number 3 versus Tennessee, number 6. At Tennessee, who you got?
So I'm just going to go ahead and say I got Tennessee regardless. I just think with Bryce Young, it's going to be a little bit more hard to do it, just because, I mean, we've seen the offense operate with Bryce and without Bryce, and it's obviously two different teams. So I like Tennessee. I think this offense is one that's going to, I guess, be able to take advantage. Bama's defense has gone up against, I mean, who's the best offense they've gone up against? Texas, maybe.
And
they only had Quinn Ewers for a quarter of that game. Yeah. So the Arkansas, I mean, that's a good offense. KJ Jefferson eventually left the game, but he played most of that. That was a 5-point game, I think it was, after 3 quarters. So they weathered that storm. This Tennessee offense, though, I mean, it's a step up from that. So I think this is going to be the one. I think this is going to be the one where Bama finally, they've had some close calls. I think Tennessee's a team that's good enough to finally take them down.
Yeah. And it's now my question is, before I give you my answer, if Tennessee beats Alabama, does this put them up at the 3 range? Like if they beat Alabama number 3, does that bump them all the way up to 3?
Absolutely, dude.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're in that top 5, dude, if they win this game.
Yeah, I agree. And so I'm actually going to put Tennessee, and I'm with you. I think regardless, again, I agree with you. If Bryce Young's there, it might be like the Texas game where it'll come down to a few plays and only Tennessee would win. But I think Tennessee, if Alabama doesn't stop this offense, then I think we're going to start seeing the Alabama getting exposed. And I don't think I ever would say that about a Nick Saban team, like Alabama getting exposed. But this Alabama team is not like the confident Alabama team that I've seen in the past, right? It just feels a little different. And man, if Tennessee pulls this out, which I think they will, and my score prediction is high scoring, like I said earlier, I think it's going to be 45-38 Tennessee. And I think it's going to be a great game. So 45-38, I got Tennessee, and yes, they will move in the top 5 at least, depending on what Michigan does in the Penn State game.
All right. Love it, dude. Let's move on to another big undefeated matchup. The big noon game, Michigan and Penn State. Other teams.
Finally we get to hear Michigan actually play a team. Goodness gracious. Start.
In Michigan's defense, who has Penn State's best opponent been this year? Would you say that's Purdue, week 1?
Yeah. I mean, but both
they've gone against Purdue. They've gone against a really bad Auburn team. They've gone against Northwestern. It's like both of them have something to prove this game.
I have 100%. Yeah. I'm just thinking of Desmond Howard that decided to just say an idiotic statement last week, and then was doubled down by a couple other people. So I just think it's fascinating.
It's Michigan's had 3 conference games now, so it's the stats I think are starting to get a little bit more leveled out, more realistic. UConn also is 3-3 now, so I think we need to give that win a little bit more credit than what we initially did. But I'm kidding. UConn's still terrible.
You're trying.
Hey, let me tell you what though. We got 2 of the top defenses in the country in this game, Ben. But as I just said, both of them haven't really truly been tested by a big time offense, so some of these could be skewed. But let me give you a rundown here. Michigan, 4th in scoring D, 3rd in total defense, 2nd in yards per play allowed, 20th in third down percentage allowed, 5th in sacks, 5th in yards per carry allowed, 2nd in yards per pass attempt allowed. The only area that they are lacking, I guess, is takeaways. They're 97th in that out of 131 teams. So you'd like to see them, especially playing against these inferior teams, maybe get a little bit more turnovers forced. But overall, they're cooking. Then over on the Penn State side, it's not as good, but it's pretty solid, dude. 9th in scoring defense, 29th in total defense, 16th in yards per play allowed, 18th in third down percentage. They are 6th in takeaways, so they are taking the ball away from their opponents and using that to their advantage. 32nd in sacks, 11th in yards per carry, 11th in yards per pass attempt allowed. Now, knowing that both of these defenses are crushing against these inferior teams, I'm giving Michigan the edge because I like their running game better. I think the Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards tag team can do better than what Nicholas Singleton can do over on the Penn State side. I like J.J. McCarthy's ceiling, also running ability, and his efficiency a little bit better than Sean Clifford.
Who's been there forever.
Yeah. It's like, when Sean Clifford going to finally do it? He's not going to improve anytime soon. We know what we get in Sean Clifford. And I think JJ's ceiling in this game could be much higher. So I'm giving Michigan the edge here, although I can't decide how close of a game I think it's going to be. Let me hear some of your thoughts.
I want everyone to listen real quick, okay? This is going to be a non-biased point of view, okay? Just because I'm a Ohio State fan, I can have these non-biased thoughts, okay? All right, so this is my thought about this. First off, can we give props to the Big Ten and some of the defenses that are in the Big Ten right now? Like legit.
Minnesota, I think, is the number 1 scoring defense in the country.
So you have Minnesota.
Iowa's 3rd.
You have Minnesota. You have Iowa. You have Michigan. You have Penn State. Ohio State has a good defense this year. Illinois' defense is not half bad. And you have, and like at one point Rutgers, but that was at one point. But what I'm saying is that finally, like, I think the Big Ten's becoming back to what the old Big Ten, where it was like defense, running the ball, those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, you could even say the same about the running backs, right?
Yeah.
With Corum and Mayan Williams and Trayvon Henderson and Mo Ibrahim and Chase Brown and all these other Nicholas Singleton, like that. It's back to the old Big Ten seems to be back.
I love it. I love it. It's like my childhood. But no, here's my thoughts. We know what Blake Corum can bring, and again, I think he's one of the best running backs in the country. And yeah, you all can laugh in the comments. Okay. Yeah, I said it. Okay. He's a good player.
It's nothing to laugh at. It's actually the truth.
It's truth. Yeah. Like it's truth. Like he's one of the better running back. I think he might be the second best running back right now in the Big Ten, behind the guy from Illinois who's just tearing it up right now on the ground, who's leading the country in yards. But Blake Corum's right there. I think if Trayvon Henderson would be healthy or Mayan Williams would be healthy, maybe they would be up there. But right now it's like every other week they're hurt. But no, I think the one thing about Michigan is McCarthy necessarily hasn't looked like himself against Big Ten opponents. And I say that because he's still young. Clifford has that veteran presence, a guy who's been there. He might not be flashy. He might not be a guy that's going to go out and be a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young or anything like that, but he's going to get the job done if you need him to. I think this is going to be a surprisingly low scoring game. I really do. I think that both offenses are still, because this is the thing. We don't know what happens if you can stop Michigan's run game or if you stop Penn State's run game. We don't know necessarily what happens. Can Michigan rely on McCarthy throwing it 40 times, 35 times? With some of these other teams like Alabama, so we know what happens when those kind of things go on. So, and I still think Michigan's defense, it might not be as good as last year, but it's still very talented. And Penn State always has a good defense, I feel like. So this is hard, man. I feel like I could flip a coin, but I'm actually going to go.
Michigan is the home team. Michigan is the home team. They are the 7-point favorite right now. I don't know if that helps sway you at all.
Okay. I hope I'm wrong when I say this, but I have Michigan winning 27-20. And this doesn't show that I'm not trying to be biased, then I don't know what does. Okay. 27-20. I think Michigan, at the end of the day, they're at home and I think they have a better running game. But again, I think it could easily be flipped. All right,
so that's non-biased, serious sports podcaster Ben talking. What's the Ohio State fan Ben want to say about this game?
Oh, Ohio State fan Ben. Oh, that is. I think Michigan would lose by 2 touchdowns. Because I just don't look. Even at Ohio State fan Ben still thinks Blake Corum is a very good running back. But again, I haven't seen enough from McCarthy against big opponents to be like, yeah, this guy is going to go out and do it for him. Because I think if you play a team that can stop the run and you stop Corum, we haven't seen what happens. We don't know. So I think a Ohio State fan Ben says Clifford's going to overcome the craziness of the big house, and it's going to be a 28-14 win. But as a podcaster, serious talk, non-biased, I'm going to say 27-20 Michigan.
I gotcha. Yeah. We really don't know what the Michigan offense can look like if you can contain their offense. We do, however, know what Penn State can do when you shut down their run game. And we saw that week 1 against Purdue. Clifford had 282 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick, and they won that game by 4. I think Singleton only had 22 rush yards in that game. Surprisingly, against a team like Purdue, you thought you could have maybe manhandled their line a little bit more, but it was Clifford leading the way there. McCarthy, I mean, he has been efficient. He's 5th in the country in passer rating. He is 1st in completion percentage. He is 9th in yards per attempt. But again, the reason that you start JJ over a guy like Cade McNamara is because of what he brings to the table with his athleticism and his legs, right? But through 6 games, he has 21 carries for 90 yards. So
that's what I'm saying.
Again, it's like I want to see them stop operating in this, I guess, easy quarterback game manager offense and let JJ just go wild, dude. Like he has thrown some deep balls this year, but he hasn't been very effective with those. So maybe they're trying to play it safe, but I would like to see maybe him get a little bit more read option opportunities, a little bit more bootlegs. I've said this many times now, but that's what I would like to see JJ do. I think that can maybe raise his ceiling a little bit and help this offense, I guess, survive if you had a day where Blake Corum got held to 50 yards or something like that. But I don't see that happening in this game. I like Michigan's line in this one, but I think the recipe to at least make Michigan struggle is to stack the box and force JJ to throw.
Hey, all I'll say is we'll wait for November. That's all I'll say. When
they
face a real, that's the thing. And I'm not saying that I'm saying that as a high state fan, as just a general fan. I think this is the thing. The reason why I kind of want Michigan to win, because I want it to be like a 2-3 matchup or a 3-4 matchup where Ohio State has the best offense. Want that. Ohio State has the best offense. Michigan has the best defense. I want that. I want it to be like the game from 2006 when it was 1 versus 2. Like I want to see that again. But I also know like Michigan, if they struggle against Penn State, then I'm interested to see what happens when they face the best offense in the country versus the best quarterback in the country, because I think they'll struggle, because let's remind people, Ohio State still hasn't had Njigba all year. They still haven't had a healthy running back core. And so anyways, but Josh, what's your prediction, score prediction? And then we'll move on to the next game.
Yeah, like I said, I think Michigan wins. I'm trying to figure out how close of a game it's going to be, because I think Michigan has the capability to win this game by 2 scores. But Vegas has Michigan around the -7 mark, or as a 7-point favorite, like I said. So I'm not going to deter too much from that. I think this could be a 30-20 Michigan win on their home field.
Ooh.
But I want to bring up Michigan's schedule real quick to revisit some things that we said in the preseason. This back-to-back, they are at home for these, right? Back-to-back with Penn State.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Then they have a bye week, and then they host Michigan State. At least before the season started, I thought that 2-game stretch might be a spot where they could lose one or maybe both heading into Columbus. But seeing as Michigan State sucks, if they can get past Penn State, if they can get past Penn State, dude, they're gonna have a home game against Michigan State. They got to go to Rutgers, which should be an easy win. They host Nebraska. They host Illinois.
Jeez, no, Illinois though.
Illinois is a step up from Iowa, dude, and they beat Iowa by 13, so that one might be closer than what we initially anticipated. But if they can get past Penn State, Illinois might be the only real test they face before that Columbus game. So,
it's the same as Ohio State, because the Ohio State schedule is they have to play Penn State in a couple weeks. They play Iowa, then Penn State. They beat Penn State. Then they have, I believe, Northwestern, who's atrocious, who's so bad. Then they play, I believe, Indiana. And then
Maryland,
and then Michigan. So that's the thing is Ohio State and Penn State's like the roadblock for these two teams. If they get past Penn State, then you have a matchup for the ages.
Right. So I just wanted to bring that up, but we are both in agreement on Michigan W here. Now, another undefeated matchup over in the Big 12. Oklahoma State, TCU.
Dude, your man Dugan.
My man, Max Dugan, dude. So that TCU Kansas game last week got interesting because Jalen Daniels got hurt.
If he doesn't get hurt,
that backup quarterback came in through 4 touchdowns in the second half, dude.
It's Kansas, man.
Yeah, it's like, is Kansas offense just built different this year, or is the TCU defense that bad? It's tough to say, because both could be true, dude. But yeah, Dugan cooked in that one, or Duggan. I don't know how to say his name exactly right.
Duggan.
Yeah, I've heard both, dude. Yeah, so we got I've heard some chatter about the Oklahoma State defense. Like, even though Jim Knowles is gone, like, that defense is still
it's still pretty good,
kind of sticking around. And I'm going to push back on that, because the Oklahoma scoring defense ranks 78th and the total defense ranks 170th.
Okay. Yeah, never mind.
So I don't really know where that is coming from, unless you just want to say, since they've held teams like Baylor to 25 points or teams like Texas Tech to 31 points, that, it's back, or not back, but still there. But night and day, man, from what it was with Knowles. So there are some defensive struggles at Oklahoma State too. That's why I bring that up, because like I said, TCU's defense, not much better right now. TCU's is slightly higher. Their scoring defense ranks 53rd and their total defense ranks 99th. But it's like, we're just trying to debate whether, trying to think of 2 things that suck really quickly. Whether Brussels sprouts are better than broccoli, right? Like, it's like they both suck. So That's the best I could come up with right now.
Oh my goodness.
So both offenses are cooking though. Both are top 6 scoring offenses. TCU slightly more explosive with 7.7 yards per play. Oklahoma State 5.6 yards per play. This is a game, Ben, that I think could reach the 50s, if we're being honest here, because Spencer Sanders, like Max Duggan, is also a fringe Heisman candidate right now by a lot of people's standards. He's also very high in the total touchdowns for this year. This is one that I could see going, like I said, in the 50s. Like, could we have a 57-50 kind of final score here? What are you thinking right now once you get composed from?
I'm sorry. It was so out of left field, and I was not expecting that at all. I was thinking like something in the sports related. I didn't think we were going food. But no, no, I agree with you. I feel like this is like, does this give you the vibes of like an old Big 12 game that's like 64 to like 58 and it's just like a shootout?
We've been kind of lacking some of those, right? Like Texas just blew out Oklahoma 49-0 the week before,
which was awesome.
That was fantastic. Yeah, like I said, Oklahoma State, held Baylor to 25. We've had some games kind of like that, but
also sorry, Aaron Lynn. Sorry, Aaron Lynn. Your pick is just gone. Sorry.
Well, I can't wait to talk about Utah later too. So when we update the power rankings.
Sorry,
but another topic for later in the show.
But I think it's going to be a shootout. I think Duggan, whatever his name is. This is the thing. I believe, like, I have people that are from Texas and like, oh, TCU is going to go to the college football playoff. I'm like, yeah, and get obliterated. Like, I haven't seen this defense truly be like a legit defense. And we all know in the college football playoff, in order to win the college football playoff, unless you're the LSU offense from 2019, you have to have a freaking good defense, or at least a decent defense that can get you stops. And I think that is where it's going to go right. But I will say, I'm going to give a prediction here, because I think without Knowles, like I said, you could tell the Oklahoma State defense is not the same. I'm tending to lean towards Oklahoma State just because I believe Sanders is the more veteran quarterback. They've been there. They've done this before. And I'm going to go Oklahoma State. I'm going to go 56. I'm going to go TCU 48. I think it's going to be 56 to 48.
56 to 48. All right. I'm going like 57 to 50, like I said. So, man, yeah, this one, dude, like, I think I'm going to give Oklahoma State the edge here too. I think you can point to a couple specific things, like week 1, they allowed Central Michigan to score 44 points. I think that was more so they just took their starters out too early, because Central Michigan scored 22 in the 4th. Nothing like that has happened really since. Against Baylor, they pull out a 36-25 win. I just think they've played maybe better teams than what TCU has so far. And then also, dude, with allowing Kansas to hang with you, even with their backup quarterback in the game right there, like that kind of gives me cause for concern. So I'm going to go ahead with the Oklahoma State, the high scoring game, perhaps the real Red River shootout of the Big 12 this year, 57 to 50.
Boom. Hey, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. I do want to say, though, since you brought up playoffs and how you have to have a good defense, could Texas be that team to win the Big 12? Maybe not make the playoffs, but win the Big 12 now that Quinn Ewers is back, because we see how explosive that offense is with Quinn, with Bijan Robinson. But I want to read you some Texas defensive rankings that you just have never seen from this program in like so long. The scoring defense ranks 18th. They're 24th in total defense. They're 11th in yards per play allowed. They are 67th in third down conversion, so like middle of the pack, but 23rd in yards per carry allowed, 9th in yards per pass attempt allowed, 43rd in sacks, 40th in red zone scoring percentage allowed, 51st in opponent first downs. Like, some of these are pretty good. Some of these are like more middle of the pack, but for a program like Texas, we haven't seen a defense play like that over there. So it kind of makes me think
it was
that
also Oklahoma, though.
It was Oklahoma. And I think as time goes on, that win's not going to look as impressive as it was, but they've still played against Texas.
Yeah, I agree.
They've played UTSA, which is one of the better G5
Alabama,
teams.
Yeah.
They played against Alabama and held them with Bryce Young fully healthy to 20 points. So I think not the playoffs, right? Because they do have 2 losses, but I think they could win out with Quinn now at quarterback and maybe win the Big 12.
Next year would be good. Yeah, next year
would be the true season, right? Yeah. So That recaps the undefeated previews, and there is one more game that I wanted to talk about this weekend out of the ACC, and that would be
The ACC.
Clemson at Florida State.
We talking Clemson? We talking Clemson?
We're talking Clemson at Florida State because this might be Clemson's last challenge of its schedule, dude. Let me read you who they play after.
Are they going to be a walk-in this year? Are they going to be another walk-in where they just get like the easy end of the year schedule and just walk in?
They do have to go against Syracuse next week, but then they play Notre Dame, Louisville, Miami, South Carolina.
Oh god.
Some of their more challenging games like Wake Forest, NC State are behind them now. So if they've handled those pretty good. Yeah. ACC championship games should be interesting too, but yeah, just wanted to bring this one up because, like I said, it could be one of Clemson's last real tests, if you even want to call it that. But also interesting because this could be Florida State's third straight loss, which we've already seen Arkansas lose 3 straight games.
Yeah.
We've seen
Oklahoma
lose 3 straight games, and now Florida State could be like the next one going down 3 straight times. So we've been seeing a much better version of DJ Uiagalelei as well. I think
he's in my Heisman.
The biggest, that's been the biggest, I think, reason for this Clemson resurgence, if you will, right? 31-3 against Boston College last week. They beat NC State, who had a solid defense, 30-20. They survived the attack that Wake Forest brought, 51-45. This ain't going to be any game that they're going to trip over, right?
If we get DJU being DJU and not Streeter ruining him, like if
it is a night game at Florida State, so and the Clemson's only a 3.5 point favorite, so that's why I did want to talk about this one. Vegas thinks it's going to be closer than what I think it's going to be.
I just think DJU's on a roll. Like I just think if you're Dabo, you just let whatever's been your play calling's been the last 2 weeks and just you keep it going, because I think this is the DJU we saw when Trevor Lawrence was there. This is the DJU we saw like. This is the
against
guy that
Notre
everyone
Dame,
thought. Yeah, everyone thought this was who's going to be.
Yep.
And I think now that we see this, I think this is an amazing opportunity for Clemson to put their feet in the ground and say, hey, make sure we get that playoff spot. Because let's be honest, if the only team, like this is the thing, is no teams are secure yet, but like let's say Ohio State wins out. Let's say Georgia wins out. Then you got 2 spots that you got to figure out. And I think if Clemson goes undefeated, they're in. And then there's that 4th spot. So I think that is I just think my personal opinion is that DJU is going to throw, I think 300 yards. I think he'll run for another 50 or 60 yards. And I think Clemson's going to come out on top in Florida State. I think at Florida State, I think they're going to win. I want to say 35-13. Like I think it's going to be a decent sized win because I think they're going to get that spread early and then just run the ball.
Yeah, it's interesting too because it seems like Clemson plays this team or said team, and then Florida State loses to said team. Like they lost to Wake Forest 31-21. They were edged out last week by NC State 19-17. So those are 2 common opponents they both got. Florida State did beat Boston College 41-14. That's who Clemson beat this last week in 31-3. So I think with the downtrend of Florida State here, maybe perhaps the upswing of Clemson, I don't think this is a game that they trip over, but it could be that one last challenge. I still think Florida State's a good team, especially with a healthy Jordan Travis at quarterback. But I'm giving Clemson, and they say that this is only going to be Clemson 3.5. I think this is a game that Clemson wins by 2 touchdowns. I'm going to give them a 35-21 victory.
Nice. Hey, we just rolling out these scores. I don't disagree.
Yeah. Now, one more matchup out of the Pac-12, USC Utah. This game is at Utah. Utah is coming off that disappointing loss to UCLA the week before, 42-32. It seems that the path to beat UCLA, or not UCLA, to beat Utah is to run the football hard at them, because that was what Florida did to win that game. And that is what UCLA did with DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and Zach Charbonnet. USC doesn't have the same kind of running game.
Yeah.
But it's solid. It's still solid at the same time. I want to see in this game Caleb Williams be more consistent.
Yes.
Because he's in a lot of people's Heisman, I guess, ballots or candidates right now. But last week against Washington State, he goes 15 of 29 for 188 yards. against Oregon State. 2 games before that, he went 16 to 36, 180 yards. So, I mean, he's had some impressive games, right? Like the Stanford game, he goes 20 to 27, 341 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he's a solid quarterback. It's just he's still young, developing. I want to see him be more consistent. Perhaps this Utah game could be one for him to maybe bounce back from. But again, it seems like the path to just smash Utah is to run the ball. And Travis Dye, their leading rusher, 571 yards, 6 touchdowns. He rushes 6.3 per carry. Utah, man, this could be their 3rd loss.
Could be.
They are the home team. It is an 8 o'clock game, so primetime matchup. This is going to be, I think, USC's real first test too. I mean, it's not that Utah's on the same level as programs like, I guess, the Michigan Penn State game, right, or the Tennessee Alabama one. But when you give USC's schedule a look-see here, I'll tell you who the best teams are that they've come in contact with. So they've played Rice, Stanford, Fresno State, Oregon State, Arizona State, and Washington State. Coming up, they got Utah this weekend, obviously. They also got to go at UCLA, and then they host Notre Dame. So this is one that I think they win, USC. It is going to be more of a test, I think, than anybody else that they've played. But any thoughts on either of those teams before I give a prediction?
I did say, like, with Williams, I think that was something that I noticed this week was this inconsistency. And I looked back at some of his stats, and I was like, is this just the whole back on the Williams hype train again? Because you look at the stats.
This is the Caleb Williams USC is back hype
because
train.
This is the thing, though.
All it is.
Because 2 weeks ago when he had a bad, like, Stroud has a bad game and everyone just displaces him. Like, he's like now going to be like the worst quarterback in college football. But Williams does it. It's like, oh, it's okay. He's still getting used to the offense. It's like, yeah, but he doesn't go out and have a game like Stroud did and throw for 320 some yards and 6 touchdowns. Like, right. Like, he doesn't do that. So for me, I'm interested to see, will he step up against a very, I think, solid defense at times, not always, but a solid defense. And Utah, they have an axe to grind. Like, they want to get a win. Like, they don't want to keep losing these teams. But I agree with you. I think USC is going to come out on top, and I think USC is going to win not by much. I think it's going to be like a 20-17 game, maybe 23-17. I just don't see USC pulling away because I think Utah is at home. They have this, like, we need to get a win. And I just think that this team is a little more solid than we give credit for them. I know you've seen it all year, but I still think it's going to be a USC win coming out of there.
Would you be surprised to know that even though Utah is the home team, they're actually a 3.5-point favorite right now?
Interesting. Utah's a favorite right now.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out what edge they got because I know USC's defense is leading the nation in sacks, and I'm pretty sure they're still first in turnovers for us too. Yeah. At least in the Pac-12, it looks like Utah is first in total defense. They're first in stopping the run. No, that's a lie. Because I just said they're terrible at stopping the run. They are first. All right. First in total yards, right? They're the fewest turnover or fewest. I can't talk. Fewest total yards allowed in the Big 12. They've also allowed the fewest yards or passing yards per game in the Big 12. USC is right behind them in second. So both are very good at stopping the pass.
Yeah.
Now the run. Utah is actually middle of the pack in terms of the Pac-12, and USC is a little below them. So USC's defense, to me, let me go ahead and pull up their totals again. So they're fourth in the Pac-12 in total yards allowed, but it seems to me that USC's defense might just be opportunistic with all those sacks, with all the turnovers, making the big plays when it matters. So maybe they're just assuming Utah's defense a little bit more consistent, Cam Rising a little bit more experienced of a quarterback, and they're also the home team, and they're also saying that Caleb Williams has also been inconsistent against these lower level teams. So what's he going to do against a big time team like Utah? Maybe I just can't do it, dude. I've been wrong on Utah for too long now, and I can't ride with them anymore. I'm taking USC in this one, but I'm gonna flip it and say it. This is a game that USC wins by 3 instead of the other way around. Maybe we'll go Utah 27, not Utah, USC 27-24 here.
Josh is saying, Trojans, let's ride. I'm sorry. I am sorry. That we can just move on from that. That was embarrassing.
Let's ride.
All right, let's move on. What is we're gonna do a new segment, right? We're gonna do a new segment that you
buy
thought
or
of?
sell.
Buy or sell. I like this. I wish I had some like money. Like I could be. I'm sorry.
Graphic
department.
About some of these. Yeah, we've talked about some of these teams already, but there's just a lot of undefeated teams right now that perhaps we didn't see happening. So we're gonna go ahead and buy and sell on these undefeated teams, starting off with TCU. It sounds like we are selling because we both picked Oklahoma State to win.
I'm a very hard sell. Like I'm going to the garage sale, putting them in the front yard and just saying someone swing by and pick them up. Like it's not even a close debate for me. Sell. I don't see their defense holding up against any of these bigger offenses or anything like that. So I'm going to say sell, put them in the truck, take them to the yard sale. Heck, don't even take them to the yard sale. Just take them to the junkyard. All right.
Yeah, I think that I mean, TCU, like we already said, the defense is going to cause some problems. I think it almost cost them against Kansas when they were playing a backup quarterback. I think it's going to cost them against Oklahoma State. They still got to play Kansas State with Adrian Martinez, so good luck stopping that kid. They got to go against Texas Tech, who has the #1 passing attack in the country right now. They also got to play Texas at Texas. They got to go to Baylor.
Yeah.
And then they host Iowa State to end the season. So there's a grind for them.
Do we have like a special? We need to have like a special announcer. Buy or sell. Sell. We have sold
buy
them.
Or sell. We've sold TCU stock. Yes.
Like around the horn.
Next up, UCLA. Buy or sell. Ooh. They're coming off the home victory over Utah. They've also beaten Washington. The tandem of Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Zach Charbonnet looks like it could be one of the top 5 quarterback running back duos in the country. Are you buying or selling UCLA
I'm going to go right now. I'm going to buy the stock, but I'm going to have my operator for the truck service on hold in case I need to come by and pick it up and take it to the dumpster. So right now I'm going to buy stock. So I'm going to say I'm going to buy for now, but I feel like I'm just a bad investment.
Yeah, I mean, the offense looks like the real deal, right? Like they've put up 40 on Washington, they've put up 42 on Utah, but I think there's still some of those defensive concerns like we had with TCU, right? Like they allowed 32 to Utah, they allowed 32 to Washington, but they're scoring enough right now.
Yeah.
And I think over the next few games, they're going at Oregon. They got to bye this weekend, but they come back to play at Oregon, who has one of the worst defenses in the country as well. So that game could even reach the 60s, to be honest, dude. I hope that's a Pac-12 after dark game. Then they got Stanford, Arizona State, Arizona for the next 3. So even if they lose that game to Oregon, dude, they could be like 9-1 going into that USC game. So I'm going to go ahead and buy UCLA stock for now. And also just want to say I just want to say, too, for everybody that's got Caleb Williams in their Heisman finalists right now, exactly why? Because Dorian Thompson-Robinson should be that
there will be some shakeups this week on mine. I'm just saying.
Dorian Thompson-Robinson should be that dude. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you a few reasons why, such as Dorian Thompson-Robinson right now has just 80 less passing yards than Caleb Williams. However, he has a higher yards per pass attempt. He has more passing touchdowns. He has a higher passer rating. I'm sure he's got more rushing yards. So buy the DTR stock, buy the UCLA stock is what I'm saying.
Who's next up on buy or sell?
Next up on buy or sell is Ole Miss.
Oh, this one's
SEC
weird.
SEC team that really hasn't been tested. Their wins, they are undefeated, but they've played Troy, Central Arkansas, Georgia Tech, Tulsa. They got tested against Kentucky in a game that Will Levis turned the ball over in the red zone 3 different times. And then they just beat Vanderbilt 52-28. And they have Auburn coming up and LSU and Texas A&M. So it looks like the offense could get tested, but the defense really isn't going to have any issues until they got to host Alabama on November 12th. Do you buy or sell Ole Miss stock, considering the only ranked team they've played, they escaped with a 3-point win at home?
I'm gonna go sell for now. I look at their schedule and I'm like, okay, yeah, Auburn should be a win. LSU depends on the LSU team you get. Texas A&M, does Jimbo figure out the offense or is he fired? They're going to lose to Alabama, and they might lose to Mississippi State because they have a heck of a passing attack down there in Mississippi State. So
they do, man, and a good defense.
So I wasn't going to say I'm going to sell because I see them and I feel like I'm just going to put them in the box of collectibles that I don't really need anymore and send them off to the garage sale. I want to sell. Why am I making everything garage sale? This is just weird. I'm sorry.
Before the season started, like looking through their schedule, I thought that they could be undefeated heading into that Alabama game, and they very well could. But it had nothing to do with the fact that Ole Miss is that talented. It was just kind of how their schedule was shaping up. It's like, that could be an interesting matchup later in November between Ole Miss and Alabama. But I am also selling Ole Miss stock right now. It's just I got to see them do it against a real team, and we're not really going to get to see them do that, I guess, for a long time. And they might even be upset on their way down against one of those teams that we just mentioned. So that is Ole Miss stock. We've already talked about Clemson, Michigan, Tennessee, USC, Oklahoma State. Do you want to buy or sell any of those stocks?
So who did you say? Tennessee, Oklahoma State, Michigan, Penn State?
Clemson, Michigan, Tennessee, USC, Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State, I'm just going to briefly talk about them. I'm going to buy for the time being. I don't know who's on their schedule. I'm trying to see.
So they have beaten Baylor. They've beaten Texas Tech. They got TCU this weekend, as we said. Then they got to host Texas, go to Kansas State, then go to Kansas over the next 3 games.
I think as of now, I'm going to buy, but with caution. I'm like telling my advisor at the financial agency, hey, let's just heat the funds just on a day-to-day basis because let's
just buy 5 shares for now.
Yeah, because I think
each.
They will. I will put a bold statement. They will lose one of the games between Texas and Kansas. They're going to lose one of those 3 games. I don't know which game it will be. They'll lose one of those games.
Yeah, it's tough because Kansas State, I mean, they could, with it the way Adrian Martinez plays, dude, they're like a wild card, like a firecracker. They could go off at any time.
Same
and then
with
Texas says, we were just saying, dude, when we were talking about the Big 12 landscape, it's like, I think Texas could be that team that maybe runs the table and wins the Big 12. So even still, if they lost to Texas, this Oklahoma State team could still go 10-2 or 11-1. So I'm going to go ahead and buy Oklahoma State stock.
Man, I like it. That was the first installment of Buy or Sell. It's pretty epic. So
it's a pretty good one.
The question
and then
is,
next week
Josh,
after some of these matchups,
Question is, Josh, does the audience, if you like this and you want to see more of it, we should do more. And like when NBA comes around, we can buy how the Cavaliers are somehow blowing their season because, Cleveland fans. But other than that, no, I love this. Hey man, I'm liking this. Josh comes up with the ideas on the show. Okay, I'm just here.
Try to make it more interesting. Yeah, give us more things to talk about. But
I like it.
We will bring back buy or sell if you buy it.
Or
go ahead in the comments. Tell us in the comments, do you buy or sell? Buy or sell.
Buy or sell. Yeah. So, Josh, I think that leaves us with one last thing to do in college football. And I mean, we do it every week, Josh. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's only, power rankings and Heisman rankings. I mean, we never, but no, I was told a comment from a listener that we don't change any of our lists. I'm like, well, we haven't had a reason to change any of our lists.
A power ranking is different from an AP top 25 poll.
It's different. It's not based on
power ranking is more like the playoff poll where we try to think of the 4 or I guess 5 best teams that we think are in the country, regardless of maybe what their record shows or who they have played.
Exactly. And so I'm interested to hear, I can announce this because as we're recording, I got the text message. We have a special guest for this week's edition of Power Rankings and Heisman List. That is the one and only from Crane & Company, David Cohn.
Oh, yeah.
He's not here with us in person, but I do have his message that he sent me. And I'm supposed to read it as it's put on the list, which is just going to, it's going to irritate me. But that's the way it's going to be done. So I want to just go over our list from last week in the Power Rankings, Josh, and then we will produce what we're going to do. So last week, Myself, Ben, that's me. I had Ohio State number 1, Alabama 2, Georgia 3, USC 4, and I had Tennessee 5. And then Josh last week had Ohio State number 1, had Georgia at number 2, had Alabama at number 3, USC at 4, and then the good old Utah, which he got a lot of comments on that, by the way. The whole Utah
Everybody
pick.
was excited to see Utah finally lose.
Especially one guy from the Fifth and Goal podcast. Can't remember his name, but he was kind of giving you a hard time. And then we had Blaine Crane, also from Crane and Company podcast, and he had Georgia at 1. He had Alabama at 2, Ohio State at 3. He had Clemson at 4, and he had Tennessee at 5. At least we agree on something. So this week, I'm going to go ahead and I'll go first this week, Josh. You always tend to go first. I'll mix it up. I'll go first. Or should we have David's go first? Should we have David's go first?
Let's hear David's because I'm curious. We kind of already have a baseline of what we think, but
yes,
this is the first time we're hearing David's.
So here's David's. I got to switch to the other one there. Here's David. So I just hate that I'm reading this. So his power rankings. He has Ohio. He has Ohio at 1.
That's why you said you have to read it as he typed it. Yes.
So he has Ohio at 1. He has Alabama at 2. He has Georgia at 3. He has Michigan at 4, and he has Clemson at 5. I think it's a pretty solid list. Nothing crazy, other than the fact that he can't just put the last part of the name. It's in the university name, David Cohn. Oh, gosh. It's besides the point. But anyways, so that's his list. Josh, your thoughts on it real quick before we get into mine?
Not too many complaints, dude, on my end.
Hey, I'm right with you. So here's my list. I typed it up during study hall today. So I have Ohio State at 1. I have Georgia at 2. They're flipping on me a little bit, and then I have Alabama at 3. I have this hurts me to say. No, I have Tennessee at 4, and at 5 I have Michigan, partly because USC's offense, like Caleb Williams, again, like we talked about, I don't know about USC right now, and so I have them just slipping out, just like they're like 5B, like they're like right there. Mm-hmm. But I have Tennessee at 4, then Michigan at 5. What about you there, Sir Joshua? What do you got?
So, Ohio State 1, Georgia 2. Now this is where it gets interesting.
Oh, please no.
Because we both picked Tennessee to beat Alabama, correct?
We did.
Regardless whether Bryce Young was playing or not. So I decided to reflect my power rankings with that prediction and put Tennessee at 3.
That is a bold move right there.
It is a bold move. And if I'm wrong, then I'll put Alabama back. But right now, since I think Tennessee is going to win the game, it just makes sense to put Tennessee at 3 right now.
So not Iowa? Iowa doesn't go? Okay.
Not Iowa. I do have Alabama at 4, though. I'm still putting respect there. Then at 5, see, I've had USC there for most of the season, right?
Yep.
When they had that close call with Oregon State, they had 4 turnovers that they forced on defense, and Caleb Williams had a bad game. I was like, they can win with that defense, even when Caleb Williams has a bad game. But then Caleb Williams had another bad game. So I'm like, okay, this offense is a little bit vulnerable here. So USC, at least right now, is dropped out of my top 5. And coming in at 5, in place of Utah as well, is Clemson.
There you go. Hey, you know what? I'm proud of you. You didn't.
I can't pick Michigan or Penn State or USC to beat Clemson on a neutral field right now. I just wouldn't do it.
You know, and that's where like I was tough because I think Clemson, Michigan, and USC for me are like all like they're like this. They're
all right there. They're right there. You could put either one of them there and have an argument.
Right now, my tiers is kind of like Ohio State, Georgia here, Alabama here, and then everyone else there. I feel like there's this like 2 at the top, there's the middle one, and then there's everyone else.
You got it, yeah. And I will say too, like watch out for UCLA too.
Yeah,
since I'm buying UCLA stock.
You're buying the stock, man. That was on our section. Buy or sell.
Throw UCLA into that discussion.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you. It is going to be a heck of a couple games where that will decide a lot of things. But more importantly, we have some big players, Josh, that are making some impacts all over the field. And so we're going to go over our list from last week, and then we'll talk about our Heisman list this week. So last week I said I did say this. I said this at the beginning of the show. I said this last week, and if you don't remember, you can go back and listen. I said if CJ Stroud had a bad game, I would drop him in my list. I said that, and Josh was here, so he remembers. I said if he has a bad game, I will drop him in my rankings, but you'll find out what happened. So CJ Stroud was at 1 last week for me. Hendon Hooker was at 2. Caleb Williams was at 3. Drake May was at 4. And then DJU was at 5, which everyone was for some reason shocked I had put that, but I was proven right. And then Josh had CJ Stroud at 1, Hendon Hooker 2, Drake May at 3. He had Blake Corum at 4, and then he had Max Duggan at number 5, the Duganmeister. And then Blaine Crane had Bryce Young at 1, which Blaine, I'm sorry, that was just stupid.
I think Blaine would change it now.
I think he would too. CJ Stroud at 2, Hendon Hooker at 3, Caleb Williams 4, and Adrian Martinez at 5. Josh, shall we hear David Cohn's Heisman list?
Is there any interesting spellings in there at all?
No, not really.
As he wrote it.
Okay, I'll read it as he wrote it. He says top 5 Heisman. No, he says CJ Stroud 1. I think all of us.
Quarterback from Ohio.
Stop it. Then he had Will Rogers from Mississippi State at 2. Ooh. He has Blake Corum at 3, of course, like he's got to. He's a Michigan guy. Then he has Dorian Thompson Robinson. That's a lot to say. At 4, and Drake May at 5. Any surprise there for you? Anything you want to comment
Maybe
on?
Will Rogers, although he has. I mean, he's had a ton of volume. It's just anytime you're in a Mike Leach offense, you're going to have an insane amount of stats. But it's not just the total. I think Will Rogers also is pretty high in the yards per pass attempt too. So he's been not just, I guess, being a volume passer, but he's also like gunning down every pass attempt he makes too. So that's a new one that we haven't heard yet, but I could see the argument.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this is mine for this week. So that was David Cohn's. Mine for this week is at number 1, CJ Stroud. And I'm going to say this right now. I think CJ Stroud, even with a bye week, is still a head and shoulder above anybody else right now. That's not me. Like, that's just me looking at his quality work. When he came after a bad game, we said last week was a bad game for him. He comes back and does this. That's scary. And that's without his best receiver. So that's all I want to say. CJ Stroud 1. 2 is Hendon Hooker. I think he's number 2, and I think it's going to stay that way for a while. This is where mine gets a little wacky. 3 is no longer Caleb Williams for me. You'll notice that is dropped down. It's actually for me, DJU has jumped up from 5 to 3 for me. I'm making a bold statement, and I might get ruined this weekend, which I have a funny feeling I will. DJU for me is at 3. I just think the last 2 games for me and the progress he's made, it's kind of like a CJ Stroud in the way that he struggled last year and then kind of came on out of nowhere at the near the middle of the end of the year. I think the same thing with DJU in that sense. So he's at 3 for me. And just his numbers have looked a lot better, and I think they're going to continue to get better as the teams they play are, like you said, are not going to be the greatest teams. They can pad those stats a little bit. 4, Drake May stays for me at 4. I really like him as a quarterback. Again, he has numbers, and like you said last week, like you can't ignore numbers. Like you can't ignore people putting up numbers.
If you're leading the country in like all the major stats as a Power 5 team, you got to do it.
Yeah, and then 5 for me is not Caleb Williams. It's not Adrian Martinez. It's not Will Rogers. I was very tempted, though. Will Rogers is probably like right below here. It's actually Dorian Thompson Robinson. That's right. He's made the cut. He's jumped onto my leaderboard. Caleb Williams drops out. Like I said earlier, and you said, just don't see the numbers the way it should be for a guy that should be in the Heisman watch list. So that is my list. What do you think, and what is yours?
Man, I like it, dude. I almost put Dorian Thompson Robinson in my list too, but I just couldn't budge Max Duggan yet.
The Dugan.
I couldn't do it yet. So the 5 are staying the same. CJ 1, I think he's head and shoulders above the crowd. Hendon Hooker at 2. That's more so because of how he's been leading this Tennessee team than anything else. Statistically, there's obviously better guys, but as long as he keeps winning, I'm going to keep him here. Drake May at 3. If that North Carolina defense could like stop I'm not going to try to come up with another comparison. Last time I didn't come up with a good one. I need Jake Crane here, man. He comes up with all those, man. He couldn't, but yeah. Drake May at 3. Blake Corum at 4. Max Duggan 5. But Dorian Thompson-Robinson is there at 6 for me if we were to extend this.
Hey.
And if time goes on, dude, like I wanted to give Max a chance to have a Heisman moment against Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Unlike the power rankings, which are more of like a final projection, the Heisman is what's currently been done for me. And if Max can have a Heisman moment against Oklahoma State and prove me wrong, like cool, he'll stay at 5 in that top 5 list. But right now, I just couldn't do DTR just yet, but he's on my radar. He could be breaking into the list pretty soon.
Hey, I love it. I love doing this every week, Josh. It's so much fun. I love it. But Josh,
this also might be the first time, dude, that I've had the same 5 back-to-back weeks.
That is true.
I can't think of another time that's happened.
What I will say is that we love doing this. I hope you love seeing us doing this. But before we go, you thought we were just going to end it here. Like you said, hey, Ben, you said you're going to talk about the baseball. We're not going to spend a lot of time on baseball. We'll just spend a brief moment here on baseball before we end today's show. But Josh, we have the playoffs settled. The next round is set now. Actually, it's been played a little bit since the when we're recording this. So what do you want to talk about? I know you didn't want to spend a ton of time on this, but just briefly go over this before we finish the show for this week.
Yeah, not a ton on it. Phillies and Braves right now, Mariners and Astros, Indians and Yankees, Padres and Dodgers. Yeah. So one team that I guess is here that I wouldn't have expected to be is the Mariners, right?
Yeah.
Blue Jays. I mean, when you're up by a touchdown and collapse like that, even the Mets, dude. Like
the Mets just, dude, they blew this whole season. I mean, they were.
I don't even.
They blew this whole season.
I was hesitant to say that they blew it at first because in the second half of the season, they still went like 66-44 or something like that. And the Braves just were so much hotter. It's like the Braves won that more and the Mets lost it. But then you get to the wild card series, dude, and it's like, man, dude, Mets really did collapse, I guess. I mean, if you're in that position, you got to win those 2 games, dude. When you got guys like DeGrom and Scherzer in there, you got to win those. And they did not get it done. So I think the Dodgers and Padres is going to be potentially a high-scoring series. There's a lot of all-stars in here, as you know. But Dodgers were my World Series pick out of the National League, so obviously I'm sticking with them. Yankees, I think, dude, like the Indians now, what has it been? They've scored 4 runs in a total of 33 innings, I think it is.
Dude,
and
one of the most boring games I've watched. One of the most boring games I've watched.
You can do that against a team like Tampa Bay that doesn't score a lot, but this is the Yankees, dude, the Bronx Bombers. Literally everybody in the lineup can hit home runs, and we saw some of those last night. So it's like you can't do this one solo home run from Stephen Kwan thing anymore, dude. You got to get some runs together. So I'm picking the Yankees possibly in 4 games. Hopefully Cleveland can steal one when they got like Bieber on the mound or something like that. Astros walked off against the Mariners in their first game, dude, from a dinger from Yordan Alvarez. Yeah, dude. The Mariners, ironically, made the huge comeback against Toronto in the wildcard series and then blew another huge lead against the Astros this time. So they were on the flip side of that. And the Phillies, dude, ended up beating the Braves in game 1. This is maybe one that I didn't see coming, but I'm excited to see how this one turns out, especially, dude. The Braves, I mean, they had to come back in the 9th. They had 3 runs. They just came up short. So fell a little bit short of that comeback, but you can't get in that big of a hole against a team like the Phillies, dude. They can score. They also maybe have the top 2 pitchers in this series as well. So it's like not the best start for the Braves. They did finish strong, though, and maybe they can carry that momentum into the next games. But any thoughts on any of these series and how they might go? Which one are you going to watch the most closely?
Ooh. I will say, I do want to say that, hats off to the Cardinals. I know they lost, but Albert Pujols' career is over. Yadier Molina's career is over. Some of the best players to ever play the game. But my focus really is on that. For some reason, I'm just drawn to that Mariners-Astros series. And I think it's just because of the Mariners story. Like, they've been away from the playoffs for so long. And I think partly it's because it has a bunch of Reds on the team. So I'm just like I'll just root for them. But I'm very intrigued about that. Now, I know they blew that game, but I mean, if they can do that at Houston, I really believe that the Mariners have something what it takes to maybe pull up this upset and come out of there with a series win. And I think I also look on the National League side. I think the Phillies, have a very good shot to pull. I mean, they're hot right now. I think they're playing well. So we could see a couple upsets. And it could be just a weird NL and ALCS. I think it could be really weird. I don't think the Dodgers are going to have any issues. I think it's going to be in like the Dodgers versus like the Yankees or something like that. But I still think there's going to be some weird trembles around the league.
Yeah. Crazy, dude. The Dodgers have won 22 more games this season than the Padres have.
Weird.
That's how big the gap is. But obviously, being a Cleveland fan, I'm following that series the most with the Yankees. But if I had to pick one that maybe I'd be following elsewhere, maybe it is that Dodgers-Padres series, just because the amount of star players the Padres do have. I'm curious to see if they can maybe break this spell that they got, because, I mean, they got all the talent in the world. They should have been competing with the Dodgers to win this division, to be honest, but they somehow got worse after making that trade for, Juan Soto and Josh Bell. So I just want to follow to see if maybe the Padres can keep this interesting. That's the main reason why, although I do think these all are going to be fun series to watch: Mariners, Astros, Phillies, Braves, but probably that Dodgers one, just because there are some guys on the Dodgers that I like as well. And then I just want to see how the Padres can compete.
Yeah. I love it. We love ourselves some baseball, some fall baseball, October baseball. It's fun. I wish the Reds were there, but as we all know, they suck. Look, the Red season's over, and I'm still saying they suck. It's just it's a joy of being a Cincinnati Reds fan. But no, it's exciting. We have football, we have basketball starting up, we have hockey started up. Josh, there's so much sports going on. And I think if there's anything I would like to say to those listening out here is like, go watch a sport, like whatever it might be. Like, I know for my wife, she sat down and watched the High State football game with me, which she never does. And last week, and I think that's just like the fun about this time of year. You can just watch any sport, get together with friends, have a barbecue, whatever you want to do. But it's been an amazing episode, Josh. We had a new buy or sell. And the question is to you, do you buy or sell this episode? Because if you buy it, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, hit that comment. I don't know, just do something, whatever you do. Just buy this episode. I wish you could actually buy it, because then I could pay Josh. But no, in general, thank you for listening. If you do love it, do go ahead and click that subscribe button, notification bell. And if you love listening on our podcast audio wise, if you like listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, then make sure you favorite it, make sure you listen to it, share it with your friends and family. Josh, it's been a good one. I loved it. Any final words before we head out for the week? Any words of wisdom from Josh?
Just reiterating, man, this whole weekend, college football, man, it's going to be the week.
It's going to be the week.
That tells all.
It's going to tell us, is Brussels sprouts better than broccoli? I'm sorry. But if you have enjoyed it, let us know. Give us in the comments what you want to see next, any other segments you want to see, because it truly is awesome to do this. We love doing it. Heck, we have a 6-hour difference and we're still doing it. So you better like the video. But thank you guys for everything you guys do for us by just, listening and all that. And until next week, have a good weekend. Have some fun with friends and family. Until next time, we'll see ya.